This episode of the Sam Oldham podcast is sponsored by Turn, the only brand dedicated solely to men's gymnastics. Towards the end of my career, I started to work closely with the team at Turn to design custom uniforms that expressed who I was and where I came from, and they were always able to bring my ideas to life. For years, I wore uncomfortable gymnastics clothing until I started to wear Turn, whose uniforms are built with their attention to detail and quality in mind. Go check them out now at turn-gymnastics.com. and enjoy the episode. In 2010, Luke Folwell made history, becoming the most successful British gymnast at a Commonwealth Games, winning 5 medals for Team England in Delhi. Luke competed for Great Britain at the highest level and was part of the World Championships team in 2007 that took the first steps towards the incredible success we see today from British men's gymnastics teams. He now plays a key role in that continued success and was part of a coaching team whose athletes claimed the Junior European title this spring. Luke has experienced both sides of the sport, and this is his story. Luke, thanks for coming, mate. Was that all correct?
I think so, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure, mate, to sit down and have a chat with you. Like I was saying, for me, it's amazing to talk about your career and go into your story, but to have the opportunity to catch up with old teammates, it's something that you don't get very often. You know, 6 months turns to 12 months, turns to 2 years, turns to 5 years, and yeah, for me, there's been a joy that's come out of doing this process and this podcast is that I'm catching up with old teammates, and you very quickly fall back into the lives we used to lead, and it's just like old times. And I think sport probably creates those bonds with each other. So it's great to see you. And I think to start off with, mate, because you know your story is unique in that you were an athlete and you compete at a very high level. You now coach at a very high level. And I was thinking about it. I think you're probably the most successful British male gymnast that has gone on to coach traditionally in the I'm going to take kids from a young group and a young age all the way through to hopefully compete at that highest level. For me, you might be able to think of someone off the top of your head. But for our generation, you're kind of the only person that is doing that at the moment. There's a few other athletes. So I think you've got a really unique perspective. But before we get back into all of that and we go back to the start of your career, just tell me about life at the moment, mate, and what that looks like.
Very busy. Yeah, it's again, thanks for having me on, Sam. Like you say, it's great to catch up. It's we spend a long time away from one another, but you know, good friends. It's very easy to catch up very quickly, even though you've been away for long times. And like you say, I immersed myself in coaching all those 12 years ago, and it feels like it was yesterday. That's how immersed I am, just like I was when I was training. So a long period of time's gone, but here we are catching up, talking about gymnastics. I'm not sure in terms of what you're saying about the coaches and the gymnast. I haven't thought about that too much, to be honest. I just sort of stay in my lane, concentrate on what I'm doing, and give my all for the athletes that I'm working with.
And you're a family man. You're a dad now. You've got 2 children, right? Yeah.
The personal life is. I mean, I am a very, very, very lucky man. Very, very grateful. I've got a beautiful wife called Emma. She is everything to me. She helps me. She supports me. She's my absolute rock. And 2 small children under the age of 5 who have taught me so much about myself and life. And yeah, just really, really grateful for having 2 beautiful, healthy little girls that I'm proud to call my daughters.
What was that like, Luke, going from a family of all boys to then having 2 girls?
a real, it's different. I've grown up. I've got 2 older brothers, and I was always the one that was, I was the runt of the pack, as you say. So, growing up in a very male-dominated household, and now having girls, it's made me much better person. I'm much more Emma might not agree, but there's so many things that I'm better at now in terms of my emotions and controlling everything, and just trying to be a perfect role model for my children. And I can't be grateful enough for the opportunity that I've got to try and bring girls up, and I'm a really happy dad.
How important is that role that Emma's played in, not only when you were competing, Luke, you know, having someone that understands the sport, because she competed at a very high level in her own right, but also now as a coach, someone that understands the sport. How important has that been, and has it been a real advantage? Because I often, you know, I speak to a lot of my friends that are coaches, and I think if your partner doesn't come from a sporting background or a gymnastics background, sometimes it's quite hard to get it. For an example, like I took Connie to watch the British a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and she just couldn't fathom that the judges don't get paid, and they do it they volunteer their time because they're passionate about it. How helpful is it having someone that understands the sport as being your partner to support you? Because it's hard, right, finding that balance.
It really is, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't found the balance. I still struggle with that massively, and Emma will openly agree with that. Emma's involvement in the sport, it does help. It's still very, very difficult. It's still very, very challenging, but there's no doubt there's a huge amount of understanding and patience from Emma's behalf. I was a very selfish athlete, being a gymnast, as we all were and are, and I'm probably more selfish now moving into the coaching career, because it's not. I was able to switch off a little bit when I was a gymnast. I had other hobbies, I had other interests, and we was able to sort of park it and move forwards. But as a coach, it's constantly on my mind. I'm constantly thinking about what's next. How am I going to improve? How am I going to be better? How are my athletes going to be better? So it takes me a good few days when I'm out of the gym to be able to really settle and probably be the best version of a husband that I could be. But Emma's understanding of that and patience and support is invaluable, and I really don't believe I would be on the journey that I am on and enjoying it as much as I am if I didn't have her full support completely.
Amazing. Let's go back to the start, Luke. You've got 2 older brothers. Just tell us a bit about how you got into gymnastics and what that looked like.
Yeah, so my eldest brother Russell and my middle brother Adam, they were gymnasts in their own right. They're a little bit older than me, so they were already doing gym. They had some talent that the coach at the time could see, and I was just a young'un hanging around, and they knew that I was the next Folwell, and Paul, my coach, wanted to get me in the gym. I started in a rec class just as normal, like most gymnasts do. So it was quite natural for me to just follow my brothers into gym. We were all there having a good time, enjoying it. And I suppose lucky and grateful that I was able to go into a gym at such an early age, in such a fantastic setup with such fantastic coaches to be able to fulfill any potential or talent that I did have. It was able to be shown to its maximum in that setting.
Did you always live in that house? Has that always been your family house, Luke, or did you move close to the gym? Because me and Andy Smith had a conversation after Andy retired, and he said, do you know how lucky we were to live that close to one of the best gyms in the country, and for them, one of the best coaches in the world, and a junior coach in Sergey, moving to work? Like, it's just... You can't plan those things. And like, I wondered before I had this conversation, I wonder if Luke always lived in that house, because you might be one of the closest athletes in terms of like the distance you lived growing up to the gym that I know of.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a calculated step from my parents.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so we dotted around a little bit before I came along. Mum and Dad lived in different areas of the country, and we were actually, I think it was about 15, 20 minutes away from where the gym is. But then as the journey progressed, and sort of the 3 of us, my eldest brother stopped eventually, and my middle brother and myself, because we were going to gym so often, it seemed a very natural step for Mum and Dad to, well, not that I know of, but they made that step to move. So they did make the choice to move as close to possible to the gym to relieve some of the, I assume, some of the stress, some of the time of having to travel. But yeah, I'm very lucky, 30 seconds walk from the gym, that assisted and helped along the journey so much more than I could have ever appreciated. Being able to just walk to gym in breaks. If we only had a short break, I could still go home. I could go and eat at home. I could go and chill out. I could switch gymnastics off and go into my home space and just be really happy and really comfortable if ever I needed it. And, it was great for the likes of yourselves and other gymnasts that trained at the club at the time, when we were able to just go back and just really relax in a chilled setting rather than maybe on a balcony or in a gymnast's room or whatever. It was a nice switch, but it was definitely a choice made by my parents, which I'm very, very grateful for.
What was that role that your parents played, Luke? So I often ask this question with athletes that are still competing, but I've not really asked it too much with retired athletes. How important was that role that your parents played, and what role did they play? If you've got 3 young lads, right, that's a lot of... You've got to try and keep them entertained. That's tough. And if they're all doing sport too, look, there's no way that you ultimately, if you're at a gymnastics club and you're a teenager, it's kind of a full-time thing, right? There's no way you're doing it half-heartedly. It's a lot of hours. It's a big commitment. What's that role that parents are playing, and how important is it?
Vital. absolutely vital. You know, now I'm a parent to my two girls. You know, it's so evident to me that the people that unwaveringly, the love that they have for you are your parents, and they want absolutely the very best for you in any scenario in life. So the role that they played, they were able to help, they were able to guide. They moved their lives to allow us to pursue a hobby. At the time, it was a hobby. It was an enjoyment thing that we did. That little did they know that you know, Adam went on to compete for Great Britain, and then, you know, I was able to do the same thing. So the roles that they play, yeah, unwavering support, help, guidance, they instill everything, and the role that sport played for us, and myself, it's given me everything. You know, I am who I am today because of the opportunity that I had through gymnastics. You know, hard working, discipline. I could reel them all off, but they are my values. They are my pillars of life that I've been given through sport, gymnastics, and 100% my mum and my dad.
When you look at those early years, Luke, when you first got into the sport, I'm sure you've looked back now being a coach, because you will analyse, you know, your own gymnasts, other gymnasts. I'm sure you've analysed yourself and looked back and reflected. When you think of those early years, what were, if you were to say, right, I think physically my talents were these, or these areas, or maybe I was naturally strong, or maybe I was naturally had good spatial awareness. When it comes to like the physical things, when you look back now and go, oh, as a kid coming in, I came in with these kind of like foundations that were set up for gymnastics. And then in terms of the mindset, what do you think? Because how many kids start out in a group, right? But then how many make it? When you look back, you must think, right, I had a certain amount of talent here in this area, and also I had the right mindset. And what were those things for you?
That's a really good question, Sam, and I think it's quite hard to answer. From my personal experience, I think seeing how my parents conducted themselves, how Dad, both parents, they went out to work, and like I say, how they conducted themselves, that instilled in me and my brothers that hard work was absolutely number one, first and foremost. You might not be, I don't believe that I was the most talented of gymnasts. I trained with some incredibly talented guys, including yourself, but I would always give my all. I was a very competitive person. Again, that was instilled with me from growing up with two older brothers. Everything that we did, whether it would be golfing, whether it be tennis, whether it be football in the garden, whatever it was a competition, and that was instilled. So I was very competitive, and I was very hardworking. And then I'll pretty openly say that the rest of it was sort of guided and brought out of me by my coaches at the time, Paul and Ben, and they were able to nurture and help me through my career. So now as a coach, what am I looking for? You were right. You know, we start with a huge group. I started with 12, sort of 15 athletes. Natural selection happens. You know, the older they get, they turn into the thing. You know, they don't enjoy gymnastics so much. They want to go off and do other stuff. So that happens. But I think out of the gymnasts that are left from the generation that I started, you know, that the same sort of things are there. So the same hard work, the commitment, the desire, the competitive nature, those sort of things are evident in the athletes that I coach at the moment, and they're not things that I sort of have to work too hard to get out of them. They're there, and that's why they are where they are. And it's, you know, it's my job now as a coach to be able to nurture and help on all the other aspects like my coaches did for me.
When you're coaching now, Luke, I've just thought of something. When you're coaching now a group and say, you're starting from 8 or 9 or 10, and you talk about, like, you know, whether it was 20 years ago and it was yourself and your group, or the group that you coach now, those basics of like hard work, determination, self-drive, that motivation. Are there times now where you go, right, this athlete doesn't have it, I'm not going to force it into him. Nobody else can do that. So you have to almost pick your battles a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
It made me think of that then, because you are right. Like, ultimately, like, I've been around a lot of athletes when I was training, now coaching, and I've never seen it once work when somebody else is pushing you to do it. It doesn't work. That, for me, it always ends in either resentment to the sport, the person pushing you, your coach, your parents, no matter what it is. You just can't really, like, that has to innately almost be in you. Do you know what I mean?
100% agree with that.
And do you cherry pick that now, Luke? Do you, like, pick your battles and go, right, okay, I'm going to do what I can do, but ultimately, like, it's got to come from you. And do you know what I mean?
There's a certain aspect to coaching when the athletes are younger, where a lot of it has to be led by the coach, of course. And as my athletes are growing older now, you use the word, picking and choosing your battles. That's 100% a major part of what coaching is. There's what do I want out of every session, out of every week, out of every month, out of every block of period of training. There are many things that I want: improvement, progress, but the happiness of the athlete as well is vitally important, because they are committing their life and soul to what they want to try and achieve in the sport, and I'm there to try and help and nurture that along the way. I'm not here to decide that for them. Now at their age that they are, I'm absolutely here to help, support, and get the very best out of all of those different aspects of what they need. And I'm here as a coach, as a friend, as a mentor, as a confidant, as all of those different things, to try and get them to be the very best at what they are doing.
What was it like, Luke, in the early 2000s? We had Dave Eaton on recently, and he talked about the system and, the lack of, I guess, investment in the junior program in the 90s, and I was still very young in the early 2000s. So that kind of period of time, I was part of the World Class Start program, and from that program came a whole generation of incredibly successful gymnasts. But what was it like being a little bit older than myself? You're 6 years older than me. What was it like being a teenager in the early 2000s in that period? And what was the GB setup like at that time?
Yeah, I have to think back now because it was so long ago. We're showing our age, but you touched on the World Class Start program there. I think that was quite forward thinking from the guys that made those decisions. They sort of had that program and then the next program up for the slightly older athletes. But going back before that, because that sort of changed everything and helped get the coaches together, get the athletes together and working well together, and really have a clear goal and vision for where they wanted to be. Before that, it was, there were sort of like under 12 national squads, under 14 national squads, under 16 national squads, and those were the sort of national squads that I was a part of. Maybe a weekend's training camp twice, 3 times a year, led by people like Neil Thomas, and they were very much just gymnasts coming together and enjoying training at Lillyshaw. And trying to think back, I wasn't really too clear on where we were going and direction and stuff like that. And moving forwards, that was very much evident with like I say, the World Class Start programs and like that. There was a clear goal and there was a clear path of how we were going to develop and how we were going to move forward and how we were going to get better in the sport. I've always had that in the club setting, because my coach Paul was always very forward thinking in that. There was planning was very important, and there was always a reason behind what we were doing and the next step, the next goal, the next target. So that wasn't a struggle for me as a teenager or as a junior gymnast or whatever. But seeing the gymnasts before, without being disrespectful to them, incredibly talented individuals, incredibly talented gymnasts, but not quite making those steps and having those benchmark results to make us all then go, wow, this really is possible. Now, there's been athletes that have won European medals, won world medals, made finals, but it happened more consistent sort of later on, and then that belief, and then that the understanding that this is actually possible. This is what our expectations are now, and this is what we're going to do. You know.
Well, do you look back, Luke, and almost think that prior to when everything changed and Eddie Van Hoof came in 2006, and then the top squad was created, and there's a bit of an overhaul, and even prior to that, when he had the World Class Start program, was it almost like, because I look back and I go like, lots of those senior coaches that were the top coaches in those clubs were getting paid pennies. Like the passion to succeed and the will to like have success must have been there, and it was almost cultivated in the clubs first, and then like the GB setup like caught on. Is that what you when you think about what you had, the environment you had at Huntingdon, you talk already about, I had that at Huntingdon, Paul had this plan, we knew what we were working towards, but it didn't exist yet in the kind of GB setup. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And maybe I'm not well equipped to sit here and say that wasn't in the BG system, because I was so young and it was so long ago, and I was quite naive at that age. But I agree with what you're saying, that the likes of Paul and then there's 4 or 5 other personal coaches that were working in those stronghold clubs at that time. Definitely the progress and the movement that we made within the national system was because of those individuals and what they were doing in their clubs, and the passion and the drive and the goals and the vision that they had for their athletes. 100% it's down to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, because when I look back, I think the same thing. It was almost... It starts in the clubs, right? Because that's where all the coaching's done.
Yeah.
That's where 90% of the coaching is all done in the clubs, right? Every week. And then you have the national training camps that happen, if you're in a senior team and you're in that top squad, you may be meeting every single month. But the majority of the work is done there at that grassroots level in those clubs. So the environment in those clubs is so important, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, if I was to take athletes now and start them, I'd be doing 4 or 5 years of work before they're even a part of a national system. If they're lucky enough and good enough to do well in competitions and stay in the sport, then they enter the national system and they start working with the national coaches. And what I would say now, from where we are compared to where we have been, the national system's great. The coaches that are involved there, they're highly knowledgeable, they're highly motivational, and getting your athletes into that system now is a huge benefit to them and to coaches, because it's a learning environment for coaches, for gymnasts, and it's somewhere that you can completely upskill yourself and be better in every aspect of what you're doing. But beforehand, of course, if you've got that setting in your club, which I have with my head coach Lee Walls, who's been hugely supportive, hugely helpful for me. I've always felt comfortable in any club that I've been in, and that's why I've been very clear and careful to make the decisions. That obviously my parents made the decision for Huntingdon because they trusted in Paul and they trusted in the club, but my decision to go and coach in City of Birmingham was based around where can I get the best out of myself, where can I get the best out of the athletes, and what environment do I want to immerse myself in, so that we can get all of the foundations and all of the start points right before, hopefully, if all the stars align, some of these athletes can go on and be successful.
Can you talk to me a little bit, Luke, about that World Championships in 2007? There was that real change in 2006, the top squad's created. And I think sometimes that result gets missed a little bit because, everybody, in a gymnastics community within Great Britain, everybody remembers the 23rd place at the World Championships in 2003. And that gets brought up quite a lot. But then and I believe you guys came 15th, is that right?
Around there,
so 15th. So that's 8 places. You've jumped 8 places. That's a huge step. And I spoke about it in the intro. That's, you can look at that as the first step towards the success that the whole program has gone on to have. Tell me a little bit about that shift. What was the change there, and that experience competing at the World Championships and moving up from 23rd to 15th?
Yeah, I think so. That in 2006 in Aarhus, I think we were 18th, 19th as a team, so there was a little jump.
Okay.
And then going into Stuttgart, we jumped further. And to put your finger on what changed, what happened, I think it was the product of all of those personal coaches working with those athletes and having the talented athletes come together, and we were all united in how competitive we were. We wanted to be better. Every day in the gym, we pushed each other, we challenged each other, as did the coaches. The plan was there, the program was there to make improvements, make steps. We weren't happy, we weren't comfortable with being 18th or 19th. Even when we came 15th, it was great. It was progress, but we wanted more. We always wanted more, and I think that is a big part of why progress was made. Of course, you've got the national system, you've got the coaches, you've got the athletes that are better, but definitely being in that environment where we always wanted more and we always wanted to be better, that was used to push us along.
Around that time, Luke, when you've got like Dan and Lewis starting to win lots of medals, and heading into Beijing, can you just talk a little bit about if there's an athlete in a similar situation where you've got 2 incredibly successful guys that are going out and they're winning these individual medals, they're getting lots of attention, media attention, sponsorship. your approach for me was always incredible in terms of you never seemed to on the outside externally let that get to you. I never felt that. You were always incredibly supportive, and it seemed to me like you used that as a real motivator and a driving force to help. You were like, well, I want that as well as them. I want the same thing. And talk to me a little bit about that environment around that time, because that's the time when I moved to Huntingdon, and the decision I made was because, you know, I had to choose at the time between 3 gyms. It was kind of Hinckley, South Essex, and then Huntingdon. But Huntingdon was the place to be around that time. Like, it was such a successful program, and you guys as a group were doing things that, you know, no one had done before. Certainly in our generation. Just tell me a bit about that, and if you were to advise, if you were speaking to a young athlete that's maybe in a similar situation, let's say they train at a gym like South Essex, and you've got Max and all these athletes, and they're not quite there, but they want it, and they're training with them. What approach did you take during that period of your career?
It wasn't an active decision, Sam. You know, we're talking about 2 athletes there that, you know, Lewis and Dan, who are, you know, they're my brothers. You know, I grew up with them from the age of 6, 7 years old until we retired, or I retired from the sport when I was 20. I spent more time with them than I did with my own brothers and family. So there was never any resentment. There was never any, oh, look what, you know, they've got this, and I haven't got that. I was always the first one to be the happiest for them, because they'd done exactly the same as what I had done. They'd committed their life and their soul to the sport. They travelled even further than what I had to travel. And especially, you know, with Lewis's situation, with, you know, Elaine, his mum, and how much sacrifice and how much determination they had to just get him to gym. Yeah. So I was always the first one, like, so proud and so happy to see them achieve what they'd achieved, and grateful because there was far too many athletes around us that were doing the same sort of thing that weren't getting those results, and to see people actually go and get those results. You know, I'm a massive team player, and I think that's one of my great attributes, and I just over the moon for them. I can't sum it up really, the joy and you know, going to see Dan and Lewis go on to the Olympics and then go and win medals at Europeans, World, Olympic level. I cherish those moments as much as I cherish my own personal achievements, because I know everything that had gone in for those. And the advice I would give to young athletes now is, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we are in such a better place as a sport, so and in society and culture, it's challenging. If we don't win, well, it's not good enough. And I understand that, you know, at elite sport level, there is very much, it's about winning, and it is about that. But perseverance and, you know, self-reflection, how much can you look at yourself, and what areas can you be better at? And if you are, I'm a big believer, if you are giving everything that you can to all aspects of your sport, as yourself as a person, then you will reach the level that you reach. And if that is the level that I did, you know, where I went to the Commonwealth Games, went to the World Championships, I'm completely content with what I've done in the sport, and I know I've made my family proud. If that means that there's more talented athletes than myself out there, and they go on to world medal and Olympic level, then that's completely, and I'm completely at ease and comfortable with that as well. So the advice would be, just don't worry about too much about use what's going on around you, of course. So you're talking about South Essex, the hugely successful program, the fantastic coaches in the gym, the fantastic athletes that have been there and done that. You know, use it. Use what you can use from it, and try to make you the best version of yourself, so that you can fulfill your potential, you can fulfill your talent, rather than being jealous or wondering, well, he's got that or she's got this. Well, just focus on what you need to do, and you'll find a lot of happiness and content when you decide it's time to stop, or if you decide that you're going to do something different. You know, that would be my advice for that.
It's interesting, right? Because you're in that position now as a coach. You've got one of your own athletes you personally coach. It's been incredibly successful, become a junior European champion and medalist. And now he goes back into your gym, and he's got other teammates in his group that are in that position, right? I guess they're the things you would hope to see from them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I take great pride in the athletes that I coach, that that I've instilled and tried to educate in a way a lot of my morals and a lot of my pillars of strength, and I've tried to educate that onto them. Of course, I'm respectful of they have their own, but one of that is of course is humility. You know, if we are successful, as Gabriel was at the Junior Europeans and Winston was in the year before at the Junior World Championships, we go back and we use that as motivation for ourselves, and we also use it for motivation for the other athletes that are in the group, because again, they're all there, they're all committing the same time, they're all committing the same amount of hours. The stars align at the right time and we get an opportunity and we can go and take that's what gymnastics is about. You take your opportunity when you've got it, and so we definitely use that in the gym and help the other athletes in the gym with that.
I remember a conversation we had, Luke. It was actually a conversation I had with your mum, and it was at an awards dinner in 2008, I think, after the British Championships. And your mum was basically encouraging my parents to essentially not just put all my eggs in one basket. She was saying, look, you should still try and encourage Sam's education. And I can remember you at the time saying, yeah, but Mum, you don't understand. Sam's different to me. He's a different level of talent. And I can remember sitting and thinking about, I think about that a lot, and I would at the time. I think number one, I took that as pressure because it was coming from you, and I was like, you were like a role model to me. But number two, I think it said a lot about maybe the way that you thought about your own ability and talent levels. And maybe now, do you notice a difference in terms of the young kids coming up? Do they just have more of a, because I've seen it so much, like I believe I can get that, I can do that. Is there, have you seen that in that Junior European group that you've coached this year, that you've been part of that team, and also in yourself? When you look back now, do you sometimes think, oh, I wish I had a bit more like self-confidence? Do you think that conversation was reflective of that, maybe of your own mindset at the time and your own gymnastics? You know, we started today and you said, I don't think I was the most talented. You know, I was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Because that conversation's always stuck out to me.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think yeah, you stumped me with it. What I saw with my own eyes in you, you were a generational talent in gymnastics, and I understood that where I was. It didn't mean that I devalued what I thought about myself or where I thought I could go in the sport. That's why I say, my hard work and my ethos of never giving up and always that competitive nature. That's why I got to the level that I got to. But I knew that of course I'm a bit older now, and there's a lot more self-reflection that had gone. Perhaps the 20-year-old Luke, as you knew him, was a bit different. I didn't lack a self-confidence. I was quite loud. I was quite, that competitive nature has always been there, and I've tried to instill that across everybody that I came across when I was at that age. But now as a much more mature, being a parent, understanding a little bit more about life and gymnastics especially, there is so much more to than just talent. Of course, you're not going to get to the level that you want to get to based on talent alone. I work in Birmingham. There is a huge amount of talent that comes through the doors, but they have to have more than just that to be able to get to where they want to be and where I can help them get to, for sure.
Just tell me a bit about 2010, Luke, because I think it was almost a perfect storm for you, really, that year. We had, I think that summer we had teams like going to Worlds, Commonwealths. It was that year where the Worlds and Commonwealths are together, and we weren't going to
same time, wasn't it?
Yeah, we weren't going to send one team to do it, and one team was going there, and you ended up being essentially the team captain of that team that went out to the Commonwealth Games. And there was a few young gymnasts coming through. It was a great mixture of a team, that. And I went back in preparation for the episode and watched your routines from that competition. And I think that's also why, like, I watched your gymnastics and I was like, wow, like, in terms of that time period, like, particularly rings and vault, but all around, incredible athlete, and we still struggle with, at times, with ring strength, and that area for us in that time, you stood out. There wasn't many athletes at that time that were very strong, very powerful on vault, and were certainly pushing. And I talk about it now with Jake at Huntingdon, like the level you got to on vault, considering that you didn't have a full run up and that vault was right next to the wall, is amazing. And I like the fact that Jake now, he starts the first part of his run up and he's almost walking and then sprints. That is because the run up has got to be because of that short run up. That's something that's threw me as soon as I got to Huntingdon. You've got like a 15-meter run up on vault. So yeah, like watching those routines, and it's just an incredible level that you got to. And I hope you're able to look back now and be very proud of the level of gymnastics that you competed. But just tell me about that experience in Delhi, because that record still stands. It was equalled by Max and Niall in terms of the medals that you won at single Commonwealth Games, but it still stands.
Okay.
So it was just an amazing record to have, mate.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And yeah, just tell me a bit about that experience. And I'm guessing, did that become your Olympic Games?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There was a really challenging period of time for myself personally. The result of the week, you know, I'll go into that, but that selection period, you remember, we did like many control competitions at the National Centre, and they were sort of trying to work out who was going to go to the Worlds, just sort of the A team, if you like, because that was really important. It was part of the qualification process for the next Olympics. And then the Commonwealths was sort of seen as the B competition at that time, only because it was they were side by side. And I remember doing the trials, and I did particularly well. I think the final trial, I can't remember where I placed all around, but I really felt confident that I would be in the Worlds team, and I was going to be in that A team, and I was going to be pushing for our team to be moving forwards in the qualification. And I remember Paul said to me, "Well done," after we'd found out the teams, and Paul said, "Well done, you're going to be going to the Commonwealth Games." And I was like, "No, it's not good enough." Like, not that it's not good enough, but I said, "No, I've done well. Why am I not in the A team? Why am I not going to the World Championships?" He said, "Look, you did well enough. Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like you could have been in the Worlds team, but you'd have probably just been in the Worlds team, going as a participation individually. You'd be helping the team to go and do what they need to do. But I really feel like this Commonwealth Games for you, the reason I've made the decision to put you in this team is because I feel like this could be, you know, a real springboard and a kick step in your career, and you can go and make a name for yourself." And at the time, I just thought, I honestly, in reflection now, I felt Paul didn't believe in me as much as perhaps he did.
Did you feel like he was spinning it?
Yeah.
Almost like trying to convince you to, do you know what I mean?
Definitely, because that competitive nature in me, you know, the talk of an A team and a B team, I was like, no, I've not done my job. I'm not in that team. But in hindsight and again, self-reflection, I'm so grateful for what Paul did at that moment in time. It was the best decision that could have possibly happened in my career, and to go out and have the week that I had out there and enjoy it with my teammates, with Paul, my personal coach. You know, it took a long time for me to sort of soak all of that in, but forever grateful that he made those decisions, and what a fantastic decision it was. It wasn't about... The decision was made for my best interests.
Yeah.
You know, and as a coach, I now try and use that absolutely every time I make a decision for my athletes, whatever. It's always about them first and foremost. What do they need? What's going to be the best thing for them? And Paul showed that in bucket loads in that decision making. In terms of the games itself, like, yeah, the highlight, the pinnacle. I went to the previous Commonwealth Games in 2006. It was my first senior international, and I was an absolute rabbit in the headlights. I'd got no idea. I think I was 19, and I was super excited. It was in Melbourne. It was in the Rod Laver Arena. Like, still to this day, probably my favourite competition, because it was just mad. But I didn't compete very well. It was absolutely an experience, and it was used as to give a lot of the team experience moving forwards. Yeah. So I'd not done very well in the first one, and then used all my experience from that experience to go into to Delhi, knowing, right, well, I'm here now. I'm as prepared and as well organised as I could ever be. And if I'm going to do something, then I'm going to do it this week. And my goal and my focus, it wasn't about if I was going to do a clean routine because I was so well prepared. It was about, right, well, how well am I going to do my routine in competition? And I felt so confident and prepared for that week. I think I failed one routine out of all of the routines that I competed in. I did the team, the all-around, and made quite a few individual finals. So I'm incredibly proud of my performances that week. And then to come away with the medals, of course, is amazing. And that stands there for my parents and my family, that it wasn't just for me. It was for them as well, and everything that they had committed and given up. And also for the future, you know, when my girls are old enough, and to be able to sit with them and explain to them what Daddy did as a profession before he started coaching. Yeah, it's something that I cherish, you know, and I'll never ever take for granted the opportunity that I was given and the results that I got, and I use it. You know, I talk to my athletes all the time about these moments where you have to seize your opportunity, and that's not to add pressure or to make people feel uncomfortable, but knowing that the preparation is done well enough in advance that this is your time, and if it works out, the feeling and the emotions that you'll gain from that are unrivaled. And if it doesn't, it's completely okay. Then this just wasn't meant to be right now. This is our time, so we'll go back, we'll lick our wounds, we'll take our experience, and then we'll use this experience to be better and more confident the next time we go forwards. And that's exactly what I did from my competitions into that week. And like I said, the stars aligned. And yeah, I'm waffling about it, but I could talk about it forever. It's just really, really proud.
Does it help, Luke, in a competition like that and an experience like that, having very young athletes on the team? Because you almost have to be a bit stoic, right? You almost have to be like, right, externally, I need to look like I've got this under control, and I need to also lead these young gymnasts that are coming through because they don't have the experience, and you're almost like tricking yourself into being. Does that make sense?
It's an interesting stance. I didn't feel like that, if I'm honest, Sam, because the athletes that were in that team, you know, we're talking about Max Whitlock, you know, no introduction needed. He again, a generational talent. Like he was so in the zone. And then the other athletes, that I think it might have been one of Reese's first competitions. And I felt a real bond with Reese while we were out there, particularly through the all-around final, working closely together. I didn't actively feel like I needed to act in a certain way to help him, but I just tried to be the best teammate I could be, you know, supporting him, helping him, talk to him if he needed it. And then the other athletes, I think it was Steve J, who at the time, who was a similar age, so and Danny Lawrence, who was a bit older. So I didn't feel myself. Obviously, I'd been to a game, so I helped on that side of things and tried to explain a little bit about what to expect. But when it got to game time and it got to competition time, the guys were good enough, and they rightly were selected to be here at this competition. So they went out and they did their thing. And I
think sometimes as well, like right in gymnastics, it's not like you give team talks for it. Like you can lead through your performances, can't you? Yeah,
you can do, and maybe that was a part of the week. I didn't actively think about that. You know, you're quite selfish as an elite athlete, and when you're in that moment, like I spoke about earlier, I was so focused and so ready to go. I was just in my zone, get on the apparatus, do my job, and if that led by example, then great. But manage, maximising everything that I could do from a team point of view off the apparatus.
Just before we move on to the coaching things, Luke, and you transitioning into that role after your career, just tell me a little bit. I think people will find it really interesting. Like when I moved to hunting, one thing that I was taken back by in the beginning was that we do routines every Friday. Yeah. No matter when. You always do routines. And there were certain non-negotiables. And I remember having some tussles with Paul at the beginning, and Ben used to let me off with a lot of things. With Paul, he'd be like, no, this is what we do this on this. Even the tumbles and the lines on floor, you build all the way up. And I'd be like, I've not warmed up properly though yet. Why am I trying to do my combinations on the floor? And the floor was rock solid and the walls were close. And, every Friday you have to do routines. No matter if it's December or it's the middle of summer, on Friday we're doing routines. It took me a while to integrate into that and to get it. And to kind of, the likes of you and then Ahmad and other athletes kind of brought me into that. And then I got it and I was like, oh yeah, I'm fully in now. I get this. But it took me a while. And have you taken any of those principles into your own coaching now?
I think it's a really good point that you made there about the non-negotiables of our training. Like you coming in as slightly younger than us and seeing the senior athletes, that was a non-negotiable. Yeah, whether we agreed with it or we didn't disagree with it, Paul made his views clear on why we did that and made us understand. And it got to Thursday night, and you were going to bed thinking, I've got routines tomorrow, but we've got no competitions for so many weeks. But it wasn't always full routines. It could be slightly reduced routines. So it was always challenging. It was always difficult. But if we were doing it, then it made it a lot easier for the younger guys to then say, well, if those guys are doing it, then we need to do it. The tumbling aspects, you know, Sam, your tumbles at your age were already probably much more complex and more difficult than the tumbles that like I personally were doing. So now there has to be a balance. There has to be an understanding of where I was as an athlete and those things that were those bits that were put into our training program and why we did them, to working at that level now compared to some of the level of the athletes that I work with now and what they're doing. There has to be a little bit of give and take. You know, I don't personally ask for routines every single Friday, but I do a really solid period of competition preparation, and I prepare the athletes in that way. The endurance on circles I took away, of course, and I've used that as a staple for the younger athletes to do the endurance on pommels, which stuck out, and I always struggled with because I wasn't very good on pommels and didn't have very good wrists. That used to
do my head in. I'd be like, I just want to do skills, and I've got to do like 30 seconds of 10 stations.
Monotonous work.
And in the beginning, again, the buy-in was like, wow, this is going to take me half an hour. And then I've got 10 minutes left of the rotation, and we'd stick to rotations, whereas when you train with Sergey, you just train for as long as you want. But it taught me lots of really valuable skills, because you guys all did that too.
And on that, who's to argue?
Yeah.
You know, Daniel Keating speaks for himself on his pommel results, and Lewis Smith, you know, they were a product of that. And I could see that they were so good on pommels because of course, their talent, of course, their ability on the horse, but there were also other things that definitely played a part in why they were so good. So again, being in my environment, not being too arrogant to say I don't need to do this, you know, seeing the athletes do what they were doing and this being a major benefiting factor to that. Well, of course I'm going to buy in. Of course I'm going to jump in, even though it's difficult. But I try very much, you know, leading into the coaching aspect of what I do now. I've self-reflected enough to know that there was, of course, good aspects to my training and good aspects to what I did as a gymnast, but I don't ever want to coach who I was. I want to go about it in a different way. I want to coach in my own manner with the influences from my head coach and the national system, because gymnastics constantly modernizes itself. And I think if I was to just go and stick myself and take all of the principles of that type of training when I was an athlete and move them into now, I would come unstuck. That's not to say that I haven't absorbed it all in and taken all the best parts that I think are the best parts and use it in my program, but also used it, you know, with a modern twist, with like I say, the influence from my head coach and others, and obviously my own influences as well, my opinions.
And that's your job, right? To constantly keep improving and pivoting and changing and modernising. Like, if you stay stagnant, you're going to kind of get left behind. Yeah,
of course. You talk, and the perfect example of that is the 2.5 vault that I did on vault. Yeah, we're 12 years on, and Jake's doing 3.5. Put a full twist on the vault. And if somebody had said that back then, we'd have all been like, "Are you sure? Like, you're bonkers." And here he is, going out and nailing it and sticking it dead. Like, gymnastics moves forwards, it modernises itself. And as a coach, you constantly have to evolve and adapt.
What was it like, that transition process from athlete to coach, Luke? And how did you find it? Did you find that tough? You know?
Horrible. Horrible, challenging, difficult. How many different words can you? I was in a pretty challenging place with it all, Sam. I didn't know what to do. I'd spent my whole career and life geared towards, you know, once education had finished, that period of time was just about double sessions, recovery, doing all the right things to make sure that I could be the best athlete I could be when I'm in the gym. And then all of a sudden, I got an injury. I had to have surgery on my shoulder, and my life just, that normal structure and that day-to-day routine just disappeared. And I found it very, very challenging. I'm very grateful and very lucky for the support that I had around me. My parents, again, my brothers, my girlfriend at the time, that they were able to help me with a lot of the things that I know maybe some other people haven't been able to deal with and work through. And that's not because they haven't got the support network in place, but my support network definitely helped me through that period. And there was a large part where I because of the injury and because I wasn't able to sort of go out as on the high that I wanted to. There was a bit of resentment, there was a bit of frustration towards it. So when there is that emotion, it's right, well, park it. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm not going to go back to the sport. I'm done. I need to. I haven't made that much of a living from it. I need to go and, you know, relearn, upskill myself. I was thinking about going into trades. Just going to be a normal person. However, with time and with that bit of patience that my parents granted me, to be able to stay at home and sort of say, look, don't rush into any decisions. We're here. We'll support you. We'll give you advice if you need it. That resentment and that frustration towards the sport completely changed, and I am into coaching now because I was able to say, you know, I've done 20 odd years of this already. You know, to put that into university terms, you've done a couple of degrees and PhDs already in the sport, and I know too much about the sport. I've learnt too much. I've had too many fantastic experiences to just push it to a side. I need to get over that, get over the bad feelings towards individuals or the sport or whatever it was, and move forwards. And I feel like I've got plenty to offer others in our sport, and that was the major motivator for me to start coaching gymnastics. You know, that possibility to work with incredibly talented individuals, to work with children who are amazing. You know, we all have challenging relationships with adults, but kids are kids, and I'm there to provide a coaching service, and they just want me to help them.
Yeah.
Like, what a fantastic and unique experience you can have if you're respectful and you're completely zoned in on that. So, like I say, the motivational aspect was for me at the very beginning, well, if I can give these athletes or these boys a positive experience in the gym, and who knows, potentially one day some of the experiences that I've gained from the sport, well, surely I'm going to create, like, I'm going to have some happiness, I'm going to have some content from that. And I can safely say now, sort of 12 years on, working with them, seeing my gymnasts, you know, be part of national squad programs, go away to international events for Great Britain, Junior World Championships, Junior Europeans, and seeing the experiences now and the euphoria that they have, is so powerful. Yeah. And I'm really grateful and really happy that I stepped into the world of coaching, that I'm now trying to provide these opportunities for others.
When I first moved to Huntingdon, Luke, when I was 14, you were probably the one person that, for me, that stood out in terms of, I felt, looking back, that you probably understood how difficult that was for a 14-year-old to do.
Yeah.
And you really took it, I felt you took it upon yourself to support me and help me and try and seamlessly integrate me into that environment and make me feel part of the team. You know, the circumstances in which I had left my old club were pretty complicated and quite difficult, and I remember being very nervous to go to my first national training camp and seeing the old lads that I trained with and the old coach, because of the way in which I'd left. And you were very much, no, you're part of our team now, you're with us, you don't have to worry, that's okay. So I now see you being a coach, and I get it, because he was already trying to lead and trying to, like, support younger athletes at that point in time. And I also remember around that time, you were probably the one person, well, I wouldn't say that. I actually think the environment that we were in, as much as, like, Paul would be quite strong, he would entertain, like, pushing back, and you would push back quite a lot. I remember yourself, Dan Keatings, I remember, he would push back a lot. There'd be times where Dan was driving like 50 minutes, right, to get to the gym. He'd be late, and Paul would be like, that's it, no more. If you're late tomorrow, you're not coming in. And he'd push back and say, but I got to drive 50 minutes, and these guys live down the road. And you'd be like, yeah, Paul, like, listen. So there would be that, you know, but at that time, I feel like you were already asking why. You're asking, why are we doing that? Why are you saying he can do that, but he can't? And it seems to me, looking back, do you feel like, yeah, I understand why I became a coach, because I was already starting to... Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and that's
it doesn't surprise me that you've become a coach and now working with young people because of the way you were when I was a young person and I came to that club, and the way that you supported me.
Yeah, I suppose the views and the perspective of other people, it makes you realise that. At the time, no, I wasn't aware of it. You know, I hadn't worked hard enough on self-reflection to know that I was doing that. So that subconsciously, that was just part of who I am. But to hear that from your perspective is really interesting. And yeah, that is who I am now. That's what I do. We touched upon briefly earlier about that, you know, when to pick and choose your battles, and we talk about Paul and that environment that you've explained there about picking and choosing when was the right time to go no, and then the right time to have that conversation, to know that we all felt a part of the journey moving forwards. So, you know, amazing to, again, subconsciously, all of that's going in, isn't it? Because that's the way I'm being treated by my coach. So I'm going to take that moving forwards to work with the athletes now that I work with. And then you talk about yourself coming into our environment. We were a very, very strong unit, you know, our group. We mentioned Dan, we mentioned Lewis, Ahmad, Luke, Carson. There was loads of us that worked, all the similar ages, and we were all working for the same thing. And we were brothers. And we were very much, if you were in, you're in, you know. And if we went to competitions, it was Huntingdon, and we had to look after ourselves, and we had to make sure the next, you know, not to be aggressive or anything like that, but if we needed to get on the apparatus, we needed to get on the apparatus, etc., etc. So when you came and you decided to make that step and come to Huntingdon, you were part of our team, Sam. And if that was, you know, it was such a massive decision that you made in your life, and such I to start with, I couldn't get my head around it. I think, you know, such a young man to make the decision he's making. Huge repercussions potentially for future, but of course it was our job to make you feel as comfortable as possible. You moved away from family, you were living with Cameron, and it was like, you know, he's just a 14-year-old lad. Like, I thought about what my brothers did for me when I was 14 and how they were always there for me, but you hadn't got that. So of course I wanted to make you feel as happy and as comfortable as possible, because I knew what the decision and the commitment that you'd made to try and maximise your potential, and you were fully committed to your sport. So, you know, that's just human nature to get around people that have made those sort of decisions and try and help them. Yeah, maybe people say you don't have to, but I do. It's one of my morals and one of my things that you know, if people are struggling, I want to help, or if people need support, I want to provide support.
Well, I obviously wouldn't have told you at the time I was a 14-year-old kid, but that was huge for me. You know, I'll always be grateful for that, because, you know, it was a very difficult time for me. You know, I was very lost, wasn't sure. I'd lost all my friendship groups.
You were 14.
I was 14, You're not supposed to have it figured out, right?
At
14, you're supposed to be lost. So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, for me, that was huge, mate, and it made me feel very, very welcome. And I can remember going to that first training camp and being proud to be part of this new team. Like, these guys, like, really going to look after me. What was your first opportunity in coaching, Luke, actually? And then was it a purposeful decision to move away from Huntingdon?
So I went to the test event in 2012 in London, and I sat with quite a lot of the judges. We went out for a dinner, and I caught up with them because I hadn't seen them for a while. And Lee sort of mentioned to me about whether I was interested in coaching or not. And at that time, I was like, no, I don't think so. I'm not. I don't think I'm going to pursue other opportunities and look away from the sport. And he said, look, no pressure, no stress. If it's something that you are interested in doing, then just give me a call. Or if you want to come up and have a look round, then no problem. And it was very relaxed, no strings attached. And like I mentioned earlier about that bit of time where I decided, no, actually, this is what I want to do. I want to give back to the sport that's given me so much. So I took a trip up to Birmingham, and I watched Lee in the gym and Jodie at the time with the girls. And I just couldn't believe what I was witnessing. It was like a well-oiled machine working at like 500 miles per hour, and it really took me back. I sort of stood and I was watching, and I was thinking, wow, this is something that I would love to be a part of. I'm privileged to have sort of Lee to even have thought about me or wanted me to be a part of this as well. So it didn't take very long for me to be in that gym and realise, like, yeah, okay, I want to be a part of this, and I want to learn my trade, and I want to learn in this environment where boys and girls coaches are working together, and there's athletes that are intrinsically motivated to get on. I'm looking at, you know, 8, 9, 10-year-old boys that are doing pommel circles while Lee was over the other side of the gym doing other stuff, and I was thinking to myself, God, man, like if that was not saying that we didn't have that in abundance in Huntingdon, but it was very much more, maybe not coach led, but there was a big aspect of that, and it was an environment there that I remember looking back and go, like I say, 5-10 minutes of being in the gym thinking, yeah, I want to be a part of this. Unfortunately, doors didn't open at Huntingdon. Huntingdon is my club, will always be my club. I spent my whole gymnastics career there as an athlete. I'm still very, very fond of the people, the coaches, the club, the opportunities that I got. Mum and Dad still live in Huntingdon. My brother still works at the club, so I've still got really fond ties to Huntingdon. But I'm on a different path. I work away. I think I needed it as an individual. Emma and I, we moved away, and we started our life in Birmingham. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity that I've got now at the club.
What were some of the personal hurdles and challenges you had in those early years of coaching, Luke? You know, because you retire, you've been an athlete your whole life, and then all of a sudden you're in something completely new.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're still learning about yourself, right? But you're learning about yourself whilst you're trying to, I guess, support young athletes and young gymnasts.
Huge learning curve, Sam, and it would be naive of me to say that I didn't make mistakes, because any coach that hasn't made a mistake is not trying to do the right things. You know, I made loads of mistakes, but thankfully I was in an environment where parents were supportive, gymnasts were supportive, head coaches were supportive, mentors were supportive. So I was able to make those mistakes, learn from them, and be able to move forward quickly. And the biggest thing that I learned was that self-reflection, to be able to say, right, I've done this is not working, or I shouldn't have acted like that, I should have behaved in a different way, and really hone all of those really important skills as a coach. And I'm still honing them now, because I'm not the finished article as a coach. I can still become better. But that was a big part of the early coaching experiences, making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, and still those things that I mentioned earlier about why I started coaching. The reason I started coaching was for the athletes, to get the best out of them, to help them and try and fulfill their potential, try and fulfill their talent, and try and get them the experiences that I had. So at the very early stages, those experiences were, you know, the buzz of making 2 circles on the mushroom, or the learning a new skill and seeing a Cheshire Cat smile on the face of a 9-year-old because he just achieved a new skill. Like euphoria, joy, happiness that I was providing for those athletes. That was amazing at that time.
How's your coaching style changed now, Luke? So if you were to go back, let's say, for instance, you started with a brand new group tomorrow, and you were to watch your coaching style 12 years ago, and then the way you would approach that now, how has that changed over that time period?
I think I'd tap myself on the shoulder and say, chill.
Okay.
I was full on.
Like in a rush to get somewhere almost.
Yeah, a little bit eager for them to improve every go, and need them to be doing 5 circles on the mushroom, and need them to be swinging to handstand on the P-bars, and then now knowing that everyone adapts and everyone learns at different times, and it's just about, okay, maybe taking a step back and going, all right, it's not the end of the world if you don't make 5 circles today. We're on the process. You show me right things at this point, and we'll get there in the end. And that's a big thing that I've learned, you know, having worked with athletes, that not everybody will go on this linear line to improve and get better at things. Some people, you're all over the place, and you as a coach have to be aware of that and not place too much emphasis on, well, you've done it today, amazing, you've hit those targets. If they don't, then it's also okay. We'll do it just at your time, and your journey is going to be different to the other person's journey, and there's a much better understanding of that now where I am. So I think I would probably be, this sounds a bit arrogant, but I think I'm a better coach now. So going again, I believe I could provide an even better service, an even better opportunity for the athletes.
Tell
but
me a
who
bit.
knows?
Yeah, tell me a bit, Luke, about that European Championships, okay, and that experience, because you sit in a very unique position of having been in that pressure cooker as a gymnast, and then been in it as a coach. And what is that like, and what are the differences, and how did you find it being in that very stressful situation, but not going up and putting your hand up yourself?
Yeah, it's odd. The first time I ever experienced that was when Emma came back from retirement and she went to the 2014 Commonwealth Games, and I was sat in the crowd, and it was horrendous. I was like, everything that had gone in, being that supportive person and helping Emma get back to the pinnacle of her gymnastics career, and standing there and going, oh my God, it's down to her. I can't help in any way now. I've just got to sit back and I've got to watch. And it was really, really difficult for me personally to deal with all of that. So that's a big change from when you're in control of it. You are aware of it, but you sort of not, like, I was, like I say, I talk about the week in Delhi where I was so confident and happy and convinced I was going to do my routines clean. That it was almost second nature. My hand went up. I've been in many competitions where it hasn't felt like that. So I never felt too pressured to deliver in that setting as an athlete. But as a coach, then that's the goal now. And the goal as a coach is to prepare your athletes to such a point where they're physically ready, mentally, their confidence bars at 100%, so that they can go onto the floor and they can have a positive experience on the competition floor, knowing that it might not be, am I going to do a clean routine? How well am I going to do my clean routine? And that's what I really try and place the emphasis on now with the guys. So going onto the floor as a coach, we talk about national level. Of course, there's still that will and that desire that you want them to do the best that they can do so they can reap the rewards and the benefits. But I'm pretty confident knowing that they'll have a positive experience, fall or clean routine, because of everything that's gone on beforehand. Mm. You then I was very privileged to be asked to be the team coach for Great Britain this year for the Junior Europeans. And it's a very different setting again, because I had my personal athlete on the team, and then I was working with other athletes that, of course, are part of the squad, and I've built some form of relationship with, but not as strong as perhaps I'd have liked with my own, like I have with my own personal athlete. So you have to really invest the time and the effort in those prep camps to be able to get to know them, what makes them tick, what makes them be in their happy place, what makes them as comfortable and as calm as possible, to then go and deliver their very best when it really matters. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort in that period, in the last 6 months, sort of. If I was given the opportunity, then I was going to take it with both hands, and I was so grateful for that, and I wasn't going to take it for granted. I was going to be the best version of myself for the team and not just my personal athlete. So it was a big emphasis on that, and then dealing with it on the competition. Of course, first pick, we started on pommels. The hardest piece to start on, in my opinion, in a competition at a Junior Europeans. We're in the last subdivision. We march out. I was confident in the athletes. Yeah, we had 4. We needed 3 scores to go through. And once we got through pommels, I was a bit nervous as a coach, but again, the emphasis was on them and making sure that it didn't matter about me. It was not about what I felt. It's not about what I wanted. It was about making sure that they were in the best possible place to deliver their best possible routine. So that's what I did. And then going round on the competition, working with like those guys that were in that team, like, and across the whole of the squad, there's some incredible, exceptional men and gymnasts that went to that floor, and unfortunately there was guys that didn't get in the team and they weren't able to go, but I count them the same as the guys that were able to go out there and do it, and watching them go around, and just the smiles and the excitement and the buzz, and we were going around and the boys were going, oh, this is amazing, like, I'm loving this competition, it's really enjoyable. Like, as a coach, yes, your goal is on, we want to win, we want to have the best possible but to know that they were saying that back, I was like, well, as a coach that I've been asked to do this, we're already winning, because they're enjoying it. Some of them the first big international, and they're having fun. And if people are having fun and people are enjoying themselves, then 9 times out of 10 they're going to get the best version of themselves. Going around the competition, amazing. we hit routine after routine after routine, and I was out there with a colleague, Josh, who you've had on, and we watched a little bit of the subdivisions beforehand, but then we sort of said to each other on the bus on the way to the warm up, we were like, we should stop looking at the scores now. Like, let's just focus on what we got to do, and we did. And the first time I looked at the scoreboard was actually when we were back out. We were competing, and I could see some scores that had gone up, but I was so focused in helping my national coach and helping the team do what they needed to do. It only sort of, we got round and we hadn't failed a routine. And I remember sat with the national coach after high bar, the 3 boys had been, and they'd gone through their routines, or the 4 boys. And Andre said, I think we've got a team medal, Luke. And I was like, good, but is it going to be gold? And he said, maybe it's not possible. And I was like, no, of course it's possible. Anything's possible. And we went to floor, and I think the average worked out that they needed quite a high average to finish it. So I just said, I said to the boys, I said, look, don't worry about a score. Let's just focus on what you're doing, your performance. Like you're at Lillyshaw, like you're in your home club. Focus on what you're in control of. You're not in control of what the judges are going to do. Yeah. All you're in control of is your techniques, is your landings, is your confident demeanour, confident body language, and go out and enjoy it, because this is what we've worked so hard for. We want to be in these situations and scenarios, and yeah, they smashed it, they nailed it, and hats off to the boys, because they are an incredible bunch. And the euphoria and the emotion afterwards when it popped up and we'd been crowned junior European champions, it was very, very special, and yeah, it was just raw emotion at the end.
When you're in a situation like that, Luke, and it is a pressured situation, and you're being put in an environment, and you're being asked to do a job, but there's pressure on your shoulder. It's not just your athlete; it's like a team, and it's a program. How purposeful do you have to be with the words that you use?
Yeah, of course.
And is that premeditated in a way? And you spoke there about spending that time over those 6 months to get to know the athletes. How important is it that you know the athletes, so you say the right things in those moments? Because I've been in situations before where I've heard people in those pressure cooker situations say something, I think, why did you say that?
Yeah.
Like, because they didn't know the athlete or have the context of their training over a long period of time.
And I think from those experiences, you've had it, I've had it, I've witnessed it myself. It's something that I have tried to upskill myself to the absolute best version that I can be, so that doesn't happen. So that the athletes that I'm with, if I'm tasked with and honoured and privileged to be a team coach, it's about them and making sure that they are as happy as possible, and you're saying the right thing. So that was a big investment beforehand to make that happen, for sure, mate.
Just to finish, Luke, this has been a fascinating conversation, mate. I've loved it. I think it'd be really important for a young coach listening, particularly a young coach that's getting into men's artistic gymnastics, but this is translatable across all sports. The first thing, if you want to coach traditionally, the first thing a young coach wants is, I want a kid on national squad, I want to go to junior Euros, and you've done those things now. Yeah. What would be the advice you would give a young coach just embarking out on their coaching journey in the same position you were in 12 years ago, and how to approach that?
Patience. No, it's generic, isn't it? Everyone will say that word, but I touched on it earlier where I said about not always rushing or cutting corners. Be patient and understand, trust in the process and the long-term goals and visions of yourself. And you've got to be completely aligned with what you want to do first and foremost. We are in a very privileged position to be gymnastics coaches. I have been tasked with 12, 15 boys, whatever it was, to come to me for me to provide a service of gymnastics to them. And of course it starts with, it's fun, it's a development group, and it should be fun all the way through, but the goals change with the athletes as they get older, and you have to change as well, and you not be so rigid in what you think and what you believe. And I am in a very, very lucky position where I work with Lee, and he is remarkable in terms of the support and the guidance and the safety blanket that I have around that. So what I would say to if coaches don't have that in their club setting, or they haven't got that, then they need to try and find it. You might not be able to find it in your club setting, but reach out with like-minded individuals and have a group of coaches that you can call upon and you can rely upon and you can share experiences with, so that you can have 5 opinions rather than just your own opinion on a situation. So you're in a much better place to make calculated decisions moving forward. So I think that's really key. To surround yourself with people who are sort of on the same sort of journey and learning together. So surround yourself with people that are a bit further along in the journey, so that you can draw upon their experience and their help and their influence, which again I'm lucky to have. But yeah, patience, calmness, trust the process. Don't worry about changing it. If certain things aren't working, then change it up. Try, and don't worry if it's not seeing any change immediately. Yeah, just be calm, be patient. Everyone develops and changes at different stages. So, yeah, some of those things I'm sure. I hope some of the coaches can take on board and help with their journey.
That was an amazing piece of advice, mate. I think, I go to these coaching qualifications now, and these days, the one thing I stress to all the coaches that I chat to and the young ones is, like, nobody is going to reach. Everyone's so busy. You have to go out and find this information, ask people questions. If you're in a gym and you don't know how to support a skill and there's another coach supporting it, go and ask him if you can have a go and they can show you how to do it. Otherwise, you'll end up being very isolated very quickly. So I think that's a brilliant piece of advice, mate.
And I think on that as well, there's a big side to of course, naturally there's an ego side to coaching. You want to be the best coach, you want to have the best athletes, you want to have the best results, but you have to know when to reduce that and understand that there are people who have more experience. They are better at certain things than what you are. So you have to be able to reflect and then upskill yourself in those areas until you can stand there then and say, if and eventually, hopefully, the ultimate goal is an Olympic champion to be able to stand there, and knowing Olympic champion coaches, they don't stand and stop at that. They constantly, reduce their ego and try and upskill themselves in other areas as well. So, if that's the benchmark, then that's how I believe all of us as coaches should conduct themselves.
Luke, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. That was awkward, wasn't it?
We'll do a better one.